Hello and welcome, folks. This is Clay from the DIY Cave, and we are going to do a little X stitching on our koozies. So I went ahead and got this first side done here just to show you what it's going to look like. And for the second side, we are going to be doing the exact same thing with one small caveat. So for the first side, I started my stitching on the top and ended at the bottom. Now that we have part of the shape of the koozie, it would be a lot harder to start at the top and end at the bottom for this side as well, because we would have to be getting our hands up into this little spot while everything else is completely sewed up. So for this, I'm going to start on the bottom and end at the top. Feel free to do bottom to top for the other side as well. I think it's a little easier to start on the top and just get these connected right here and then go down and then reverse the process for the second side. So that is what we will be doing today. Let me show you what you're going to need. Other than your leather drink holder, we're going to need a pair of clippers of some sort to cut through the thread and a fire source. And then we will need our 2 harness needles and our wax thread. So I already threaded one needle on one side of the thread. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. For the X stitch, you need 2 needles working simultaneously. So let me show you how to get this guy threaded. These needles are pretty dull, so you don't have to worry too much about poking yourself, but they are still needles, so just, sew with caution. So the first move we're going to do here, I'm going to give myself, I would say, about 2 inches of room from the end of the thread, and then I'm going to poke the needle through the thread. The thread is actually a waxy collection of a bunch of different little threads, so you can get the needle through the middle of the thread pretty easily. And once I do that, I'm going to pull the thread up towards the eye of the needle, and now I can put the thread through the needle. So I'm left with something like this. And now from here, I'm going to pull the needle back through that hole. And what this does is it gives you a little loop here with some resistance, so hopefully the needle will not come out of the thread. It's still possible. You're going to get some resistance when you're pulling these needles through these holes, so you might still have the needle come off of the thread, but if so, just do the same process again, and it should help you in the long run. Alright, so we are ready to get started on this. As I said, I'm going to start with the bottom for this side. So to get my sewing started, I want to put 1 needle through each side of the koozie. So I'm going to go needle on the right side from front to back. It's also worth noting I have sewed through these holes before just to, practice on this drink holder a few times. So when you're doing this, you will probably get a little more resistance than it looks like I'm getting when you put the needles through with the thread for the first time. That's a good thing. You want a little resistance just to kind of keep the threads in place as you're sewing and just for sturdiness with the actual drink holder. But just want to let you know that's why it looks like I'm kind of cruising through these a little more than you might be. Alright, so I went front to back on each side of the drink holder, and now I'm going to pull these strings tight, and I want an even amount of string on each side. So I'm just going to pull them nice and tight until my needles are even. And it's a little tricky to get started just because you have to bookend these pieces like so. And once you've got them nice and tight, I'm going to go ahead, and this shape is not going to hold until we get a couple passes through, until the thread's kind of cinching on itself. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the needle I put through the right hole and go back through the left hole, coming back to front. So let's find that guy. That was the right side right here. So now I've got to reach all the way up in here. I'm going to be coming out through this left side. And this does get easier as you go on too, because as you can see, I'm kind of just having to reach my hands all the way up through the drink holder in order to get the needle through the thread the needle through the hole. As you get further down, this will become easier to do. While you're doing this, make sure your needles are staying about even. And now I'm going to take that one that I did left from front to back and go back to front through the right hole. I believe that was this one. Yes, that was this one. So now we'll go back to front. One more tip, when you are putting a needle through a hole that already has thread through it, pull the thread that's already there to one side to create a passageway for the needle to go through. You'll find if it gets really bunched up, if you do a pass through one of the holes several times, you might end up stabbing the needle through a thread that's already there, and it just won't look as clean. So I recommend kind of pulling the thread to one side. All right, now that we've got a couple passes through, we can get this nice and tight. So we start to get a little more resistance, and this will hold its shape a little more now that we have two passes through. So I went front to back with each, and then I took my right one that went through, and then went to the left, from back to front, and vice versa with the left one. So from here, I'm going to start the actual X stitching. Let's go ahead and check our needles. They're pretty close to even. You've got a little wiggle room here. You still should have enough play that you can straighten these needles out and get your thread even. But if you find that your needles or your thread is really uneven after you go through a few stitches, it's going to be hard to even them out, just because you'll have thread through several different holes and you won't really be able to just pull on one side and get the result you're looking for. Alright, so from here, we're going to start the actual X stitching. I'm going to take this needle on the right, and I'm going to go one down to the left, from front to back. Pull through. We're going to do the same process from left to right. And this stitching pattern gives us the X that we're looking for.